The phrase Tourner Dans Le Vide, translated as spinning in the void, serves as a powerful and evocative metaphor for a deeply human emotional experience. While on the surface it may sound poetic or abstract, it captures a psychological state that many individuals encounter at some point in their lives. To understand the significance of this metaphor, one must consider not only its linguistic structure, but also the symbolic weight it carries in the context of emotional wellness, cognitive patterns, and personal growth. Tourner, or to spin, suggests movement. Movement often implies progress or transition, but in this context it is circular, repetitive, and directionless. It is not the kind of movement that takes us from point A to point B, but rather the kind that traps us in cycles, like a wheel that turns without traction. The individual is not static, yet is also not advancing. This paradox is central to the emotional condition implied by the metaphor. The second part of the phrase, dans le vide, or in the void, brings us to the emotional core of the metaphor. The void is an emptiness, a space devoid of meaning, connection, or fulfillment. It is a psychological and existential vacuum where the usual anchors of identity, purpose, and direction seem absent or out of reach. When these two components are combined, the metaphor describes a condition of being mentally active but emotionally lost. One may feel as though they are expending energy, thinking constantly, worrying, reflecting, questioning, but with no satisfying outcomes or clarity. This spinning is mental, emotional, and sometimes even spiritual. It is the feeling of doing much and achieving little, of seeking meaning but finding only silence, of acting but not connecting. Individuals in this state might describe themselves as overwhelmed, disconnected, or exhausted, despite not having engaged in any clearly demanding physical task. Psychologically, this state can be understood as the result of chronic stress, unresolved trauma, unmet emotional needs, or persistent internal conflicts. The void represents the internal space where needs for love, validation, purpose, or understanding have not been met. When these needs go unrecognized or are denied, the psyche begins to operate in loops. We ask ourselves the same questions over and over. Why do I feel this way? What am I missing? What's the point of any of this? But without the tools to interrupt these cycles, or the insight to uncover their origins, we simply continue spinning. This metaphor also captures a significant aspect of modern human life. In an age dominated by external stimuli, digital noise, and societal pressure, individuals are constantly urged to keep moving, be productive, stay connected, achieve more. Yet this external movement often masks internal stagnation. A person can be busy all day, surrounded by people, yet feel deeply alone and directionless. This discrepancy between external action and internal emptiness perfectly embodies the idea of turning in the void. From a cognitive standpoint, this cycle is maintained by thought patterns that are self-reinforcing. For instance, if someone believes they are not good enough or unloved, they may unconsciously seek out experiences or interpret situations in ways that affirm this belief. This leads to a closed feedback loop where the person both expects and confirms their own dissatisfaction. The void remains unfilled not because life lacks meaning, but because the lens through which life is viewed is clouded by unresolved emotional filters. In therapeutic and self-help frameworks, recognizing the state of spinning in the void is often the first step toward healing. By giving language to this experience, by naming it, we create an opportunity for awareness and change. Awareness shifts the mind from automatic repetition to conscious observation. One can begin to ask different questions, not why am I like this, but what patterns am I repeating, and what am I truly needing? This change in perspective moves us from helpless spinning to intentional reflection. In summary, Tourner Dans Le Vide is far more than poetic language. It is a precise metaphor for the emotional cycles of disconnection, the illusion of movement without progress, and the inner void that so many experience silently. Its power lies in its ability to describe a hidden struggle and bring it into the light of awareness. In doing so, it becomes the first step in a journey from confusion to clarity, from mental turbulence to emotional grounding. By understanding the metaphor, we are better equipped to recognize when we are caught in its grip, and more importantly, to begin the work of stepping out of the void and into conscious, compassionate presence. Our thoughts and beliefs hold extraordinary influence over the way we perceive ourselves, others, and the world around us. In the context of emotional health and inner transformation, understanding the power of thought is not merely a philosophical concept. It is a foundational principle of psychological and spiritual well-being. When exploring the metaphor of Tourner Dans Le Vide, spinning in the void, we begin to recognize how recurring negative thought patterns and limiting beliefs are not just byproducts of that emptiness. They are often the very engines keeping us trapped within it. To fully appreciate the significance of our thoughts, one must first understand their structure and function. A thought is not just a passing idea. It is a mental unit that influences our perception, emotions, and behavior. Over time, repeated thoughts form beliefs, and beliefs become mental filters. These filters affect how we interpret experiences. For example, if someone holds the belief that they are unworthy, they will likely interpret neutral or even positive feedback in a way that supports that belief. A compliment may be dismissed, or a kind gesture may be viewed with suspicion. Thus, beliefs shape reality, not in a magical way, but in a deeply cognitive and emotional one. When a person is caught in the cycle of spinning in the void, their inner narrative often revolves around fear, self, doubt, or shame. Thoughts like "I'm not enough," "I'll never change," or "no one understands me," may repeat in subtle, persistent ways. These thoughts don't just reflect a person's emotional state, they reinforce it. This creates a loop, what some therapists refer to as a cognitive emotional feedback loop, where thoughts generate emotions, which in turn reinforce the original thoughts. Over time, this looping becomes automatic and the void deepens. Importantly, these patterns often begin early in life. Children absorb beliefs not just through direct instruction, but through observation and emotional context. A child who is criticized or neglected may grow into an adult who constantly questions their worth. Even in the absence of current external judgment, that internalized voice continues to echo. The individual may be living in an entirely different environment, yet remain mentally and emotionally tethered to old, limiting beliefs. This is where the transformative power of conscious thinking begins. Just as negative beliefs can imprison the mind, new and empowering beliefs can liberate it. The first step toward change is awareness, recognizing that not all thoughts are true and not all beliefs are fixed. When we begin to observe our thoughts without immediate judgment, we create a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies the possibility of choice. Affirmations are a practical tool in this process. An affirmation is a deliberate, positive statement designed to counteract a negative belief. It is a declaration not of what is currently felt, but of what one chooses to believe moving forward. For example, replacing the thought "I always fail" with the affirmation "I am capable and open to learning" may feel unnatural at first, but with repetition and sincerity, the brain begins to adapt. Neural pathways associated with old beliefs weaken, while new ones are formed, a concept supported by neuroscience under the term neuroplasticity. It's important to note that affirmations are not about ignoring reality or denying pain. Rather, they are tools to reframe our internal dialogue in a way that supports growth and healing. When the internal narrative begins to shift, the emotional landscape changes as well. The individual starts to feel more grounded, more in control, and more aligned with their potential. This shift directly challenges the sensation of spinning in the void, offering direction where there was once only repetition. The power of belief also extends to how we view healing itself. If a person believes that they cannot change or that healing is impossible, they are less likely to seek help, practice self-care, or persist through setbacks. On the other hand, a belief in the possibility of transformation, even a small one, opens the door to resilience and perseverance. That belief becomes a light in the darkness, a focal point around which new thoughts and emotions can begin to orbit. In summary, our thoughts and beliefs are not merely reactions to the world. They are creators of our internal world. The void, in many ways, is not just emptiness, but the echo of unchallenged beliefs and unobserved thoughts. By becoming aware of our mental habits and choosing to guide them with intention, we begin to break free from the cycle. We stop spinning in the void and start walking, step by step, toward clarity, self-trust, and healing. In the journey toward emotional healing and personal transformation, awareness is not simply a passive state of noticing. It is the most vital and active step in interrupting the cycles that keep us trapped in emotional confusion or stagnation. When we refer to the metaphor Tourner Dans Le Vide, or spinning in the void, we're often describing a psychological experience where one feels emotionally lost, mentally restless, or spiritually disconnected. It may seem like an endless loop without a beginning or an end, yet the moment we become truly aware of what is happening inside us, that moment is where healing begins. Awareness is the bridge between unconscious patterns and conscious change. Many people operate for years under the influence of unconscious thought loops, emotional reactions, and behavioral habits without fully realizing it. This is not a failure of character, it is simply how the human mind works. The brain is designed to automate processes to save energy. While this is useful for learning physical tasks, it can be detrimental when negative emotional patterns become automated. These patterns may have once been coping mechanisms, ways to protect ourselves from hurt or rejection, but over time they become barriers to growth and self-understanding. Becoming aware means observing your inner world with clarity and without immediate judgment. It means noticing the thoughts that arise throughout the day, the emotions that frequently surface, and the triggers that consistently bring discomfort. It involves asking questions like, what am I feeling right now? Why did that situation upset me so deeply? What am I telling myself in this moment? These questions are simple, yet profoundly powerful. They shift our focus from external circumstances to internal causes, and from reaction to reflection. When a person is caught in the act of spinning, they are often consumed by the momentum of overthinking or emotional overwhelm. There may be a sense of urgency, confusion, or a deep yearning for relief, but no clear path forward. In this state, the mind often races from one thought to another, trying to solve a problem that feels intangible. This is where awareness comes in as an interrupting force. The moment we pause and acknowledge, I feel like I'm spinning, we have taken the first step out of the automatic loop. This pause, this space between the thought and the reaction, is where new choices become possible. It is important to understand that awareness is not the same as self-criticism. Many people begin to observe their thoughts and immediately judge themselves for having them. They may think, I shouldn't feel this way, or why can't I be stronger? But awareness does not ask for judgment. It asks for presence. It is about witnessing what is, not assigning blame or shame to it. In this way, awareness creates safety. It says, I see you, I hear you, and I am here to understand you, not to reject you. This non-judge, mental awareness is also the foundation of emotional responsibility. When we become aware of our own patterns, we stop blaming the external world for our internal experiences. This does not mean that external events don't matter, but it means we reclaim our power to choose how we respond to them. Instead of being swept away by emotions, We learn to sit with them, understand them, and let them guide us without controlling us. Developing awareness is not something that happens overnight. It is a practice, much like learning a new language or playing a musical instrument. It requires time, patience, and repetition. Mindfulness exercises, journaling, meditation, and even simple check-ins with oneself throughout the day can build this skill. Over time, what once felt like an overwhelming inner storm becomes something we can navigate with greater ease. We start recognizing patterns, understanding their origins, and gently shifting them. Ultimately, awareness gives us the ability to reframe our inner narrative. We begin to see that the void we felt trapped in was not a punishment or a permanent condition, but a signal, a call for attention. The spinning, the disorientation, the emptiness, they are not signs of weakness, but signs that something within us is ready to be seen, acknowledged, and healed. And once we are aware, we can no longer be unconscious. We may still struggle, but now we are struggling with direction. We may still fall into old patterns, but now we have the insight to catch ourselves sooner. In conclusion, awareness is not only the first step to healing, it is the foundation upon which all healing is built. It transforms reaction into response, confusion into clarity, and helplessness into empowerment. Without awareness, we remain stuck in the cycle. With it, we take our first conscious step out of the void and onto the path of self, understanding, and emotional freedom. In the realm of personal healing and emotional development, affirmations serve as powerful tools, simple yet profoundly transformative, especially within the framework of the metaphor Tourner Dans Le Vide, or spinning in the void. Affirmations act as mental and emotional anchors. When one feels lost in endless internal dialogue, overwhelmed by self-doubt, or disconnected from any sense of grounding, affirmations can provide stability. They do not remove the void instantly, but they offer a steady place to begin re-establishing balance. To understand the value of affirmations, it is important to first understand what they are. An affirmation is a positive, intentional statement, usually spoken or written in the present tense. Its purpose is to affirm a belief, a quality, or a goal, especially one that contradicts an existing negative thought pattern. For example, the affirmation "I am worthy of love and respect" stands in direct opposition to internal beliefs like "I'm not good enough" or "I don't deserve happiness." When repeated consistently, affirmations can begin to rewrite these internal narratives. The mind, particularly the subconscious, is highly receptive to repetition. Our internal self-image, how we view ourselves and our place in the world, is largely shaped by repeated experiences, words, and interpretations. Over time, even casual negative comments can become internalized truths, leading to patterns of self-judgment and emotional instability. Affirmations offer a way to interrupt this cycle by introducing new, constructive input. They give the subconscious mind something different to absorb, something empowering rather than depleting. When one is spinning in the void, there is often a sense of being untethered, emotionally or psychologically. Thoughts move fast and emotions seem unpredictable or overwhelming. In such moments, affirmations can work as stabilizers. Think of them like ropes thrown into the storm, something to hold on to when everything else feels uncertain. Saying, "I trust the process of life," or "I am grounded and safe," does not deny the storm's presence. It simply offers a moment of refuge inside it. These repeated statements help bring the individual back to center, reminding them of an inner truth that lies beneath temporary chaos. But the effectiveness of affirmations is not only in their words. It's in the consistency and emotional engagement with which they are used. Reciting a sentence once or twice without conviction may have little effect. However, embedding affirmations into a daily routine, repeating them with sincerity and presence, begins to change the brain's neural pathways. This process is supported by modern neuroscience, particularly through the principle of neuroplasticity. The brain has the capacity to rewire itself based on repeated thoughts and behaviors. When affirmations are practiced regularly, they create new mental paths, reducing the strength of older negative patterns. Affirmations also foster emotional self-regulation. Instead of reacting impulsively to fear, insecurity, or sadness, affirmations provide a method for self-soothing. For instance, when anxiety arises, one might pause and affirm, "I breathe in calm and breathe out tension." These words act not only as reminders but as emotional regulators. Over time, the emotional intensity behind old triggers can lessen as new emotional associations are built. Another important aspect of affirmations is their capacity to reconnect us to intention. When spinning in the void, individuals often feel directionless, emotionally adrift, without a sense of meaning or agency. Affirmations help re-establish that sense of control. Statements such as "I choose peace today," or "I am in charge of my thoughts and emotions," remind us that we are not merely victims of our internal world. We have influence, we have a say, we can choose which thoughts to follow and which to release. It is also worth noting that affirmations can evolve. As one's awareness deepens and healing progresses, new affirmations can replace old ones to better reflect the next stage of growth. Early affirmations may focus on safety and self-acceptance, while later ones may affirm purpose, abundance, or connection. In this way, affirmations grow with us, offering support throughout each phase of the healing process. In conclusion, affirmations are not magic spells. They are mental habits with long-term power. When practiced with attention and consistency, they anchor the mind and heart. In the midst of mental spinning and emotional disorientation, they remind us of truth, intention, and possibility. While the void may still exist temporarily, affirmations provide the first steps toward reclaiming space, focus, and inner peace. They are simple, accessible tools that remind us, even in chaos, we can speak clarity into existence. One of the most profound yet challenging aspects of emotional healing is the process of letting go of the past. This is particularly relevant when we find ourselves caught in the emotional metaphor of Tourner Dans Le Vide, the sensation of endlessly spinning in a void of unresolved pain, regret, guilt, or shame. The mind replays old memories, conversations, and choices like a broken record, holding us captive to what can no longer be changed. The only way to step out of that cycle is through self-forgiveness, a concept that is often misunderstood but deeply transformative. Letting go of the past does not mean denying it happened, erasing it, or pretending it didn't hurt. It means releasing its emotional grip on your present identity. Many people unconsciously define themselves by their mistakes, failures, or traumas. "I am the person who was abandoned," "I ruined my chance," or "I'll never forgive myself for what I did." These are not just statements of regret, they are identities formed around pain, and as long as we carry these beliefs, we continue to spin. We are not just remembering the past, we are living in it emotionally and energetically. Self-forgiveness begins with recognition. It means looking at our own story, perhaps for the first time, with compassion instead of condemnation. It means acknowledging that we are human beings who, at various moments, acted from pain, ignorance, or fear. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it allows us to see it in a fuller context. When we judge ourselves harshly for who we were, we deny ourselves the capacity to grow into who we can become. One of the common barriers to self-forgiveness is the belief that holding on to guilt is somehow virtuous, that it proves we are remorseful or paying the price. But guilt, when carried indefinitely, ceases to be helpful. It becomes a form of self-punishment that blocks healing. True accountability does not require lifelong suffering. It requires awareness, responsibility, and a sincere desire to do better. Forgiveness, then, is not the end of that accountability. It is the beginning of authentic transformation. It's also essential to understand that self-forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. Some wounds are layered and return in cycles. We may forgive ourselves intellectually, but still feel emotional echoes of shame or regret. In such cases, repetition and gentleness are key. Each time an old memory resurfaces, we can consciously choose to revisit it from a place of love and understanding. Yes, I made that choice. I wish I hadn't, but I understand now why I did, and I choose to grow from it. This kind of dialogue with oneself is healing, not indulgent. It's how we begin to shift the emotional imprint of the past. Another critical dimension of self-forgiveness is releasing the belief that we are only as good as our worst moment. This belief is common but deeply damaging. No one is defined by a single mistake, just as no one becomes perfect because of one success. We are all evolving beings, and in that evolution, error is not only inevitable, it is necessary. Mistakes become lessons when we allow them to be, but if we refuse to forgive ourselves, those mistakes remain weights we carry instead of wisdom we gain. Forgiving oneself also involves reconnecting with one's inherent worth. Many people believe they are only worthy of love or peace if they are flawless, but perfection is not the prerequisite for self-love. Presence is. Being present with your full self, including the parts you wish were different, is an act of profound courage. It says, I will no longer abandon myself because of my past. I am still worthy of care, growth, and healing. In practical terms, self-forgiveness can be supported through journaling, therapy, meditation, or speaking affirmations such as, I release myself from the prison of guilt, or I forgive myself for not knowing then what I know now. These are not just feel-good phrases, they are deliberate statements that help shift long-standing emotional beliefs. In conclusion, letting go of the past through self-forgiveness is a liberating step toward emotional clarity and inner peace. It does not erase the past, but it releases its power to define your future. When we stop spinning in cycles of blame and regret, we begin to move forward with gentleness, with understanding, and with a renewed sense of self. Through self-forgiveness, the void loses its grip, and space is made for healing to take root. Embracing the present moment is often described as the cornerstone of emotional healing and personal transformation. When we feel like we are Tourner Dans Le Vide, spinning in an empty void of confusion, pain, or despair, it is frequently because we are mentally stuck either in past regrets or anxious about an uncertain future. This restless state pulls us away from the only point in time where real change can occur, the present. Understanding the power of the present moment and learning to anchor ourselves within it is essential for breaking free from these cycles and cultivating genuine growth. The present moment, sometimes called the now, is the intersection where life actually unfolds. While the mind tends to ruminate on what has been or worry about what might come, the present is the only time frame where our thoughts, feelings, and actions have true power. When we remain mentally preoccupied with the past or future, we effectively disconnect from the tangible reality in which we live. This disconnection can create a sense of emptiness or spinning, as if we are trapped in a loop that has no real substance or grounding. To embrace the present moment is to develop what is often referred to as mindfulness, the practice of intentionally focusing attention on what is happening right now, with openness and without judgment. Mindfulness is not a new concept. It has been a fundamental part of many spiritual traditions and psychological therapies for centuries. Its relevance, however, is particularly striking in the context of emotional healing because it counters the very habit that keeps us stuck, automatic, unconscious reactivity. When caught in negative emotional cycles, the mind often runs on autopilot, reacting with habitual responses that reinforce pain and confusion. By cultivating present moment awareness, we insert a conscious observer between stimulus and reaction. This allows us to respond with greater clarity and calm, rather than simply reacting out of fear, frustration, or old patterns. The effect is profound. By becoming fully present, the endless spinning of thoughts can slow, emotions become more manageable, and space opens for new perspectives. Practically, embracing the present involves developing simple yet powerful habits. Deep, focused breathing is a foundational technique. When the breath is slowed and grounded, the nervous system shifts from a state of heightened arousal, often triggered by stress or anxiety, to a calmer state. This physiological change supports emotional regulation and mental clarity. Other practices, such as body scans, where attention is systematically moved through different parts of the body, help reconnect the mind and body, anchoring the self in the here and now. It is important to acknowledge that embracing the present moment does not mean suppressing difficult feelings or pretending everything is fine. Rather, it means allowing whatever arises, whether joy, sadness, anger, or fear, to be fully experienced without resistance. This acceptance paradoxically reduces suffering. When we resist painful emotions, we often amplify them. When we allow them to be present without judgment, their intensity often diminishes naturally over time. Embracing the present also encourages gratitude and a fuller appreciation for life's smaller moments. When attention is directed outward to notice the sensations of a cool breeze, the sound of birdsong, or the warmth of sunlight, we shift focus from internal turmoil to external reality. These simple acknowledgments bring us into contact with life's inherent beauty and remind us that we are part of something larger than our personal struggles. On a deeper level, living in the present moment cultivates self-trust. When we consistently practice being present, we learn to trust our intuition and inner wisdom. The fog of confusion and indecision clears, replaced by a grounded confidence that we can face life's challenges as they come. This is crucial for breaking free from the void of spinning, where the future seems uncertain and the past feels like a chain. Finally, embracing the present moment opens the door to transformation. True change happens not in distant hopes or past regrets, but in the choices we make right now. Each present moment is an opportunity to respond differently, to create new patterns, and to build a life aligned with our deepest values. Over time, these small, consistent choices accumulate into significant personal growth and healing. In conclusion, the present moment is not merely a fleeting point in time. It is the essential ground for healing and transformation. By learning to anchor ourselves in the now through mindfulness, acceptance, and intentional action, we break free from the spinning void of mental and emotional turmoil. We find clarity, peace, and the power to shape our lives with purpose and authenticity. Embracing the present is, therefore, a vital step on the path to emotional freedom and lasting well-being.